The twin suns of Varrock village were setting, covering the ground in deep golden light. Drums echoed in the air, voices rose in excitement, and every villager gathered around the large stone circle. Today was the choosing ceremony, a tradition older than their mountains. And today, a human warrior named Evan stood in the center. He had saved their village from a deadly beast 2 nights ago. He fought alone, bleeding, yet never stepping back. For that bravery, the Varrock tradition offered him one reward. Choose any wife, human. The crowd shouted together, their voices bouncing off the stone walls. Alien women stepped forward, dressed in bright robes, glowing tattoos shining on their arms. They smiled. They posed. They whispered to each other. Everyone expected Evan to choose one of them, but Evan did not move. He kept looking around slowly, his eyes calm, his face unreadable. He was not tempted by beauty or jewels. He was not searching for pride. He was searching for something else. On the far side of the circle, almost hidden behind a pillar, stood a woman who did not join the others. She kept her face covered with a dark scarf. Her robe was old, torn on the edges. She looked thin, scared, and alone. The crowd ignored her like she did not exist. Some even laughed quietly when they saw her. That ugly one came again. Why does she show her face here? She knows nobody will choose her. But Evan kept staring at her, as if drawn by something he didn't understand. Something in her eyes was different, fear mixed with silent pain. Maybe a secret. Maybe a story no one had asked. An elder stepped forward and smiled proudly at Evan. Human hero, choose. Any of our finest women is yours. Evan looked one last time at the line of beautiful women. They waited, confident, expecting his hand to rise, but his hand did not rise for them. He pointed slowly toward the woman hiding behind the pillar. Her eyes widened. The crowd froze. The elder blinked in confusion. Evan's voice was steady. I choose her. A wave of shock exploded through the crowd. Gasps, laughter, anger, confusion. The ugly one? He must be blind. No human would choose her. The woman trembled, taking a small step back as if expecting someone to hit her. She held her scarf tightly, her breathing fast and scared. Her eyes moved around the circle, and everyone's faces were hard, cruel, mocking. Evan walked toward her slowly so he wouldn't frighten her. When he reached her, he stopped a few steps away, letting her feel safe. She whispered quietly, her voice shaking. Why? Me? Evan did not answer immediately. He simply said, because you are the only one who doesn't want to be chosen. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly looked down. She shook her head again. You don't understand. You shouldn't choose me. He leaned a little closer, not touching her, just speaking softly. Then help me understand. Come with me. The villagers continued whispering, mocking, shouting. Even the elders looked annoyed. But Evan stayed calm. He gently offered her his hand. She looked at the hand for a long moment. Then slowly, very slowly, she placed her trembling fingers on his palm. The crowd roared again, but Evan ignored them. He walked with her out of the circle. She kept her head low, as if afraid someone would throw stones. When they reached a quiet street, she finally stopped walking. You made a big mistake, human, she whispered. They will not like this. Let them be angry, Evan replied. I didn't choose for them. She hesitated, looking around with nervous eyes, then whispered, my home is close. If you want to see. Evan nodded. They walked through narrow stone paths until they reached a small broken house. The roof had holes. The door was cracked. No lights inside. The woman stepped inside first. Evan waited at the door. Suddenly, he heard a small sound, a soft cry, a child's cry. Evan froze. He stepped inside slowly, eyes adjusting to the dim room. The woman stood near the wall, her hands shaking. Then from behind a broken table, a tiny alien girl crawled out, her eyes glowing with fear. her body thin like she hadn't eaten enough. She stared at Evan and whispered, "Mama, who is he? Will he hurt us?" Evan's breath stopped. The woman's eyes filled with fear and shame. She whispered, "This is why I begged you not to choose me." The girl ran to her mother, hiding behind her. Evan looked at them both and realized something was terribly wrong in this village. This was no ordinary choice. This was a secret, a dangerous one. And he had just stepped right into it. The tiny house was silent, except for the soft breathing of the frightened alien girl. Evan stood completely still, not wanting to scare her more. The little girl clung tightly to her mother's leg, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Her small shoulders shook as she whispered again, "Mama, will he take me away?" The mother quickly knelt and wrapped her arms around her daughter, trying to calm her. "No, no, my little star," she whispered. "He is not like them. I hope." Her voice broke on the last word. Evan slowly lowered himself to one knee, so he appeared smaller and less threatening. He kept his voice gentle. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. "I didn't know there was a child here." The girl peeked at him from behind her mother's arm, her eyes shining like tiny moons. She didn't answer. She just watched him, studying his face as if searching for danger. The mother looked exhausted, like someone who had been holding pain inside for too long. She sat on the floor, pulling her daughter close. Evan waited, giving them time. At last, the mother took a deep breath. "My name is Lyra," she said quietly. "And this is my daughter, Sari." Evan nodded politely. "I'm Evan." Lyra looked away, ashamed. "You must think I lied," she said. "The village rules say a woman must not hide a child during the choosing ceremony." "I don't think anything yet," Evan replied calmly. "I only want to understand." Lyra hesitated. Her hands shook as she held Sari close. Then, the truth began to spill out. For years, the villagers mocked Lyra for her appearance. They called her ugly, cursed, unworthy. No one saw her kindness. No one saw her strength. She had once been engaged to a young warrior, Sari's father, but when Lyra's face was scarred during an accident, the man abandoned her and disappeared. The village turned its back on her after that. "They say I bring bad luck," Lyra whispered. "They don't want my daughter to grow up here. They say she will be cursed like me." Sari hugged her mother tightly, hiding her face. Evan felt anger rise in his chest. "So you hide her because they would hurt her?" Lyra nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "3 times someone tried to take her away," she whispered. "Once they came in the night and searched my house. I had to hide her on the roof. She was cold for hours." Sari's small body trembled at the memory. The house creaked as a soft wind entered through the broken roof. Evan glanced around. He noticed scratches near the door, as if someone had tried to force their way in before. "Why didn't you tell the elders?" Evan asked. Lyra gave a sad, tired laugh. "The elders want her gone too." Silence filled the room. Sari stepped forward, a little braver now. She held a small wooden toy, a carved bird broken on one wing. She spoke in a tiny voice. "They said Mama was ugly. They said I should not exist." Evan felt something twist inside his chest. This little girl, so small and gentle, living in fear every day. It was wrong. Completely wrong. He looked at Lyra. And today, the choosing ceremony. "Why didn't you stay home?" Lyra wiped her tears. "I didn't want to go," she said. "But the law forces every unmarried woman to stand there. If I refuse, they punish me. They say tradition is tradition." She shook her head, and I prayed no one would choose me. "But when you looked at me, I saw something I haven't seen in many years." "What did you see?" Evan asked, someone who didn't look at me like I was dirt. Sari stepped closer to Evan now, curious. She touched his arm nervously, then immediately pulled her hand back. "You're warm," she whispered. Evan smiled gently. Humans usually are. For the first time, Sari smiled a little, but the peace didn't last long. Suddenly, Evan heard footsteps outside, slow, heavy, purposeful. He reached for the small knife on his belt. Lyra's eyes widened with terror. "No. Not again," she whispered. Sari hid behind Evan's leg without thinking. Her small hands grabbed his trousers tightly. 3 shadows appeared outside the window. Then bang! 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 Someone kicked the door. "Lyra!" A harsh voice shouted. "We know the human is inside. Come out." Lyra froze. Sari whimpered softly. Evan stood, placing himself between the door and the 2 frightened beings behind him. The voice outside barked again. Angrier now. "Bring the child out. We warned you what would happen." Evan's eyes hardened. He whispered to Lyra and Sari, "Stay behind me." Another kick slammed into the door. Dust fell from the ceiling. Fear filled the tiny house. But Evan didn't move. He stood straight, ready. The next moment would change everything. The door shook again as another loud kick hit it. Dust fell from the cracked roof, and the thin walls trembled. Lyra held Sari tightly, her arms wrapped around the small girl like a shield. Evan placed his hand on his knife, but the blade suddenly felt too small. Too simple for the danger coming. Outside, 3 shadows stood close, dark figures lit by the faint moonlight. "Open the door, Lyra," the leader shouted. "You broke the rules. You hid the cursed child again." Lyra's breath came fast and shaky. Sari buried her face in her mother's chest. Trembling, Evan stepped forward and spoke loudly, his voice steady like steel. "She's not cursed. She's a child." Another kick hit the door. "We're not talking to you, human." The man roared. "Move aside. You don't know what this woman is." Evan didn't move. "I know enough," he replied. A deep silence fell for a moment. It felt like the entire village held its breath. Then the leader barked to his men, "Break the door." Evan immediately placed his shoulders against the wooden frame, holding it shut. The attackers rammed their bodies against the door. Evan gritted his teeth as the wood groaned. Lyra's voice cracked. "Please, Evan. They won't stop." Evan looked back at her. "I won't let them touch you, or Sari." Sari peeked from her mother's arms, tears on her cheeks. Her small voice trembled. "They always come at night." Evan turned back, anger boiling inside him. He pushed harder against the door as the attackers continued to slam it. Finally, the leader shouted, "Enough! Step back!" For a moment, everything went silent. Then Evan heard the unmistakable sound of metal scraping against the door. "They brought a weapon." Lyra gasped. "No, they'll break it." Evan knew she was right. The door wouldn't hold much longer. He scanned the tiny room quickly. There were no weapons except his knife. No back door. Only a small window with cracked glass. He lowered his voice. "Lyra, take Sari and hide behind the water barrel." Lyra hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll handle them," he said, even though he wasn't sure how. Lyra obeyed, grabbing Sari and moving quickly to the corner where a large barrel stood. Sari clung to her mother, eyes wide. Evan stood in the center of the room now. Knife ready. Another slam, this one heavier, hit the door. The wood cracked. Second blow, a hole appeared. A hand reached through. Trying to lift the latch. Evan grabbed the hand and twisted it sharply. A scream echoed. "You'll pay for that, human." The man shouted. Evan stepped back, ready for the final impact. The door exploded inward. Splinters flew across the room. 3 alien men stormed inside, fury twisting their faces. The leader pointed directly at the corner where Lyra hid. "There! Grab the girl!" Evan moved like lightning. He stepped in front of them, blocking their path. The leader sneered. "Move aside. This woman broke our law. Her child is cursed. She brings disaster. Evan shook his head. You cowards hurt a child, and you call it tradition? The leader spat. You don't understand our rules, human. You don't belong here. Evan lifted his knife. Maybe not. But I know right from wrong. The men rushed him. Evan dodged the first attacker, grabbing his wrist and pushing him into the wall. The second attacked with a metal rod. Evan blocked it, though pain shot through his arm. The leader swung a heavy wooden staff. Evan ducked and kicked him back. But Evan was just one man, and they were three. The second attacker struck Evan on the shoulder. He grunted in pain and stumbled. Sari screamed, "Mama, Evan!" Her small voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Evan's strength returned instantly. He pushed forward, tackling one of the attackers to the ground. The leader charged at him with the staff raised high. Suddenly, dash boom. A bright flash filled the doorway. Someone else had arrived. The attackers froze, turning toward the entrance. Standing there were two village elders, holding glowing lanterns. Behind them, dozens of villagers gathered, watching the scene with shocked faces. The elder's voice thundered, "Stop this at once!" The attackers lowered their weapons, stepping away. The leader bowed his head. "Elder Morin, we were only protecting the village. By attacking a child?" The elder snapped. All eyes turned toward Lyra and Sari. Lyra trembled, shielding her daughter. Sari clung to her mother. Crying softly. Evan stood between them and the attackers, breathing heavily. Blood on his arm. The elder looked slowly around the room. Then he said the words that changed everything. "We cannot allow this mixing of blood. The child must be taken away for purification." Lyra's knees weakened. Sari cried harder. Evan stared at the elder, stunned. "And the human," the elder continued coldly, "must choose again. His first choice is invalid." Evan stepped forward, rage rising in him. "I don't choose again," he said quietly. "I chose Lyra." The villagers gasped. The elder's eyes narrowed. "Then you have made an enemy of this village." Human, as torches lit the night outside. Evan realized the truth. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a war, and it had just begun. Torches burned outside Lyra's broken home, lighting the village with an angry orange glow. Evan stood in the doorway, his body tense, his shoulder bleeding. Behind him, Lyra held Sari tightly, as if afraid someone would snatch the child the moment she blinked. The elder, Morin, stared at Evan with hard, cold eyes. "You defy our laws, human," he said. "You don't understand the danger this woman brings." Evan stepped forward. "What danger?" "She's a mother. The girl is innocent." Morin raised a hand, silencing him. "You know nothing about this." Evan's voice hardened. "Then explain it." Instead, Morin turned to the villagers. "Take the child and prepare her for cleansing." Lyra screamed and fell to her knees, hugging Sari desperately. "No, please. She did nothing wrong." Sari cried, her small voice trembling. "Mama, please don't let them take me." Evan moved instantly, stepping between the villagers and the mother and child. "No one touches her," he said quietly. A shocked silence followed. Morin's face twisted with anger. "Human, you meddle in affairs beyond you." Evan didn't back down. "Then tell me the truth." Morin didn't answer. He looked at the other elders, who whispered to each other nervously. Some villagers shifted their feet, suddenly unsure. A few even looked ashamed, but most stayed silent, choosing safety over justice. Morin finally spoke. "Fine, if you want to understand. Then follow me." He turned and walked toward the center of the village. Villagers parted to make a path. Evan followed, glancing back at Lyra and nodding. She held Sari tightly, afraid to let go. Evan leaned close to her. "Stay inside. Lock the door." Lyra nodded. Shakily. Evan followed the elders to a stone hall. The thick door closed behind them. Echoing loudly in the quiet room, Morin faced him. "You think Lyra is just an unfortunate woman?" he asked. Evan crossed his arms. "That's exactly what she is." "No," Morin said. "She is a witness." "Witness to what?" Evan asked. The room darkened as another elder closed the shutters. Their lantern lit their worried faces. Morin took a deep breath. 3 years ago, a noble family committed a crime. A crime so dark it would destroy their power if the truth came out. Evan's eyes narrowed. "What crime?" Morin hesitated. The other elders shifted nervously. One night, Lyra saw them, 3 nobles carrying a wounded girl. Not Lyra's daughter. Another child. They left the girl in the forest to die because she was born with a rare mark. They feared she would bring shame to their bloodline. Evan's jaw tightened. "And Lyra saw this?" Morin nodded. "Yes, she tried to save the girl, but it was too late. The nobles panicked. They tried to silence her. They burned her home. They scarred her face to mark her as cursed." Evan felt a chill run down his spine. "And Sari?" he asked. Morin lowered his voice. "The nobles believed Sari also carried the rare mark. They wanted to take her too." Evan stepped forward. "But she doesn't. She's normal." Morin sighed. "Truth does not matter to them. Only power." Evan clenched his fists. "So instead of punishing the nobles, you punished Lyra?" Morin looked away, guilt flickering in his eyes. "We feared war between families. The nobles threatened us. We tried to keep peace." Evan's voice shook with anger. "By letting them hurt a mother and child?" Morin raised a hand. "We had no choice." Evan slammed his hand on the table. The lantern shook. "There is always a choice." The elders stepped back in fear. Evan's rage burned like fire. Morin's voice trembled slightly as he said, "You should leave Lyra. You should choose another wife. You don't understand how dangerous this is. If the nobles learn you stand with her, they will come for all of you." Evan stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke slowly. "Let them come." The elders stared at him. Shocked. Evan walked to the door and opened it. Outside, the village was quiet. Torches burned, but the crowd had scattered. He headed back to Lyra's house, his steps firm and steady. When he entered, Lyra rushed at him. "What did they say? Will they take Sari?" Evan shook his head. "Not while I'm here." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, fear, relief, and confusion all mixed together. Sari tugged Evan's sleeve gently. "Evan, are the bad men gone?" "For now," he said softly. Lyra trembled. "They won't stop. They never stop." Evan knelt beside her. "Then I won't stop either." Suddenly, a faint noise came from outside. A footstep. Then another. Evan's hand moved to his knife. Shadowy figures approached the house again, slow, silent, dangerous. But this time, there were more of them. Much more. Lyra grabbed Sari and whispered, terrified, "They are coming again." But this time, it's not the villagers. Evan stepped in front of them, heart pounding. Outside, dozens of eyes glowed in the darkness. The nobles had finally come, and they were not coming to negotiate. The night outside Lyra's house had changed. Earlier, it was filled with angry villagers with torches. But now it was silent. Too silent. No whispers. No footsteps. No shouts, just glowing eyes watching from the shadows. Evan stood in front of Lyra and Sari, his heart pounding in his chest. Lyra held her daughter close, her trembling fingers brushing Sari's cheek as she whispered, "Stay behind me, little star. Don't make a sound." Sari nodded, but her eyes shimmered with fear. Evan scanned the darkness outside the broken window. Slowly, shapes stepped into the faint moonlight. 4 armored figures wearing long, dark cloaks. Their helmets had silver lines across them, symbols of noble families. Their boots made no sound on the dirt. They were nothing like the villagers. These were nobles. Guards. One of them stepped forward. Voice cold like stone. Bring out the woman and the child. Evan didn't move. No, the guard tilted his head. Human. We are not asking. Evan lifted his knife. Good, because I'm not giving. A tense silence filled the house. Lyra squeezed Sari's hand and whispered, "Why do they come every year? Why can't they leave us alone?" Evan looked back at her and saw the terror in her eyes. The terror of someone who had been hunted too long. The guard took another step forward. The elders thought they could hide her from us. They were mistaken. The girl belongs to the nobles now. Evan stepped forward. Explain why. The guard's voice grew sharp. The mother witnessed a crime. A child with a forbidden mark was abandoned. She saw it. And now her own child carries a similar mark. Evan frowned. Sari has no mark. I've seen her. The guard raised his hand. The mark is not normal color or shape. It is inside the skin. Only nobles can detect it. Sari trembled and hid behind Evan, clutching his pant leg. Evan felt anger rising. If you noble cowards hurt one more child, he didn't finish. The guard attacked. Evan reacted instantly, blocking the strike with his knife, but the guard's blade was heavier. Sparks flew. The clash echoed through the house. Another guard moved toward Lyra and Sari. Evan lunged between them. I said nitrogen monoxide 1 touches them. He kicked the attacker backward, sending him crashing into the wooden table. The third guard jumped forward. Evan swung his knife but missed as the guard dodged swiftly. The leader guard raised his arm. Restrain him. Kill the woman. Take the child. Lyra screamed. Sari cried loudly. Evan's blood boiled. He kicked the door shut, forcing the guards back for a moment. He breathed hard, sweat dripping down his forehead. His arm throbbed with pain from earlier. Lyra ran to him. Evan, you can't fight all of them. I don't plan to fight, he said through clenched teeth. I plan to win. Sari sniffed and whispered into Evan's ear. Mama said, you are kind. Please don't die. Her tiny voice strengthened him more than any. Weapon. Another loud hit slammed into the door. The wood cracked. Evan looked around quickly. There must be something, anything we can use. Lyra pointed toward a small chest under the bed. There's something important. Something they want. Evan rushed to the chest and opened it. Inside was a small wooden box, sealed with 3 symbols. He lifted it. What is this? Lyra's face filled with fear and sorrow. It belonged to the girl who died. The one the nobles abandoned. I kept it so her truth would not die with her. They want it destroyed. Another smash hit the door. Splinters flew. Evan stared at the box. Now he understood. This is proof, he whispered. Proof of their crime. Lyra nodded. They will kill us all to erase it. Evan held the box tightly. Then we must show it to the whole village. Lyra gasped. No, they will never believe me. They'll believe me, Evan said. A human. The door shattered. 4 guards stormed inside. Evan pushed Lyra and Sari behind the water barrel. He stood tall, knife ready in his right hand, box in his left. The leader guard snarled. Give us the proof. Give us the child. Evan stepped back, planting his feet solidly. Come take them. The guards rushed him at once. Evan blocked the first blade and punched the attacker. The second swung at him, cutting his arm. But Evan pushed through the pain and slammed the attacker's helmet into the wall. The leader jumped forward. But Evan dodged and kicked him. Blood dripped from Evan's shoulder. His breaths grew heavy. But he didn't fall, because behind him was Lyra, and behind her was Sari. He would not fall. Lyra suddenly grabbed a burning ember from the lantern and threw it at one of the guards. The guard yelled and stepped back. Sari, shaking but brave, threw her wooden toy at another guard. Hitting his helmet. Evan felt a surge of strength. With a final push, he kicked the leader backward. The guards retreated a few steps. Evan's knife pointed at them. His eyes burned with fire. "Tell your masters," Evan growled. "I don't give up wives. And I don't give up children." The guards backed away slowly, glaring. "This isn't over." Human. They disappeared into the darkness. Evan locked the broken door. Lyra collapsed in tears. Sari hugged Evan tightly. Evan held the box close to his chest. "No," he whispered. "This isn't over, but now we fight back." The night grew heavier after the noble's guards retreated. The air felt thicker, colder, almost warning them of something worse. Evan shut the broken door as tightly as he could and pushed a table against it. His arm bled and sweat dripped down his forehead. Lyra hurried to him with a cloth. "You're hurt," she whispered. Evan shook his head. "I'll be fine. We need to prepare." Sari sat on the floor, hugging her knees, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Evan's wound, she stood up slowly and walked to him. Her little hands trembled as she held the cloth against his arm. "Mama says, heroes don't die," she whispered. "Please don't die." Evan knelt to her level. "Not tonight, little star." Sari smiled weakly, then hugged him tightly. Lyra watched, tears sliding down her cheeks, but this time they were not tears of fear. They were tears of hope, but hope was short-lived. The ground outside suddenly shook, a deep, heavy thump. Thump. Thump echoed through the village. Then came the sound of dozens of boots marching together. Lyra's face turned pale instantly. No, they brought the full guard force. Evan looked at the window. Shadows filled the outside. Too many. At least 20 armed guards. Maybe more. The nobles had sent their entire private army. They wanted Sari. They wanted Lyra, and most of all, they wanted the proof in Evan's hands. Sari clutched Evan's shirt. "They're coming again." Evan picked her up gently and set her behind the overturned table. "Stay low. Stay with your mother." Lyra wrapped her arms around Sari. "Evan, you can't face them alone." "I don't plan to," Evan said. "I plan to stall them. Just long enough." "Long enough for what?" Lyra asked. Evan held up the wooden box. "To expose the truth." Another loud boom hit the wall. Dust fell from the roof. The house shook like it might collapse. The leader guard's voice shouted from outside. "Human! Bring the woman and child out now. You can't win." Evan shouted back, "Come take them." The walls shook again as the guards began smashing through with heavy metal hammers. Evan grabbed pieces of broken furniture and stacked them to form a barrier. He moved like a machine, ignoring his pain, focusing on protecting the two beings behind him. Lyra crawled to him with another cloth, wrapping his arm. "You defended us once. You can't defend all of us from an army." Evan looked into her eyes, tired, scared, but filled with courage. "I won't let them take Sari, or you." A tear fell from her cheek. The wall cracked. Guard's spear pierced through. Evan pushed Lyra and Sari further behind the water barrel. "Stay down." The guards finally broke through the wall, creating a massive hole. Dust filled the room. Evan grabbed a wooden beam like a staff and swung it at the first soldier entering. The beam slammed into the guard's helmet, knocking him back. Evan blocked another strike with the beam, but the force shook his whole arm. Two more guards rushed in. Evan kicked one in the chest, sending him falling over the table. The second swung a sword at Evan's legs, but Evan jumped back and countered with a heavy strike to the soldier's shoulder. More guards poured in. Lyra screamed, pulling Sari close. Sari cried, "Evan! Evan!" But Evan didn't stop. His breath grew rough. His arms shook. He fought like a cornered lion. Blow after blow. Strike after strike. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward, refusing to fall. But there were too many. A guard struck Evan's back. He stumbled. Another hit his arm. His being cracked. He dropped to one knee. Sari screamed, "Nitrogen monoxide!" Lyra held her as she cried uncontrollably. One guard raised his sword to finish Evan. Suddenly, flash. A bright blue light shot across the room. The guard flew back, hitting the wall hard. The villagers had arrived. Dozens of them, men, women, elders, rushed into the broken house, pushing the nobles' guards back. Some carried farming tools, others rocks, and some just their bare fists. But their faces were furious. The villagers shouted, "Nitrogen monoxide, more lies! Leave the child! We won't let them take her!" Evan blinked in surprise, breathing heavily. "Why did they come?" Lyra answered softly, "Because truth burns brighter than fear." Elder Morin stepped forward, holding a glowing lantern. His voice thundered, "You nobles hid your crime for too long. Tonight we stand with the child." More villagers pushed through, forming a wall around Evan. Lyra and Sari. The leader guard shouted in fury, "This is treason." "No," Morin said. "This is justice." The guards retreated, realizing they were outnumbered for the first time in years. Lyra held her daughter without fear, and Evan, bruised and bleeding but alive, stood beside them. The villagers surrounded them protectively. The war was not over yet. But for the first time, they finally had an army of their own. The night sky above Varak village glowed with torches, but now the flames burned for justice, not fear. Villagers formed a circle around Lyra's shattered home, holding farming tools, lanterns, and courage they never knew they had. Evan stood in the center, wounded and exhausted, while Lyra held Sari close, tears streaking her cheeks. For the first time in years, Lyra wasn't hiding. For the first time, she wasn't alone. Elder Morin raised his lantern high. "Bring the nobles forward." From the shadows, the nobles emerged dressed in expensive robes, their faces twisted with anger and disbelief. Their private guards stood behind them, bruised from the fight. Afraid to attack again, the leader noble stepped forward, voice dripping with arrogance. "You villagers dare stand against your rulers?" A villager shouted, "You're no rulers. You're murderers." Another yelled, "Lyra told the truth. You hid your crime." The nobles stiffened. Evan stepped forward, holding the small wooden box proof of their cruelty. Lyra watched him with wide, trembling eyes. The leader noble scoffed. "A box? You think a simple box proves anything?" Evan didn't answer. He opened the box slowly. Inside was a tiny bracelet made for a child. On it was a carved symbol, the mark the abandoned girl carried. The same mark the nobles feared. The same reason they left her to die in the forest. A collective gasp spread through the villagers. Morin took the bracelet gently. "This belonged to the girl you abandoned." The noble leader glared. "She was born cursed." "No," Evan interrupted, stepping closer. "She was born different. And you feared she would ruin your perfect families." The noble's face twisted in anger. "Human, you have no right to judge us." Evan's voice rose like thunder. "I have every right when you hurt a mother and a child." Sari peeked from behind Lyra, clutching her mother tightly. Her small voice shook as she whispered loudly enough for the crowd. "They wanted to take me like they took the other girl." Silence fell. Her little words carried more power than any weapon in the village. The villagers looked at each other, shame, anger, and guilt mixing in their eyes. Elder Morin spoke firmly. "Nobles of Varak, your crimes are exposed. You have spilled innocent blood and tried to hide it with lies and fear." The noble stumbled backward. "You cannot punish us." "Yes, we can," Morin said. "Tonight, the village chooses justice." The villagers roared in agreement. The nobles' guards raised their weapons, but the crowd surged forward, overwhelming them. They pinned the nobles to the ground, tying their hands. For once, the powerful were powerless. Lyra held Sari tightly, her tears falling freely. Evan walked over and knelt gently in front of them, ignoring his pain. "You're safe now," he whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "They will not come again?" "Not anymore," Evan said. Sari reached out, touching Evan's cheek with her tiny hand. "You saved us." Again, Evan smiled softly. "You saved me too, little star." Morin approached them. "Lyra, Evan, I owe you both an apology. This village wronged you in ways no words can repair." Lyra shook her head. "I only wanted safety for my daughter." "And you shall have it," Morin said. "If you allow, we want you both to stay. Your truth saved us from a deeper darkness." Lyra looked at the villagers, some ashamed, some crying, some smiling softly at her for the first time ever. "They don't hate us anymore," she whispered. Morin placed his hand over his heart. "No, today you saved us." Evan stood up slowly, wincing from pain. Sari grabbed his hand and didn't let go. Lyra looked at him, her eyes soft, full of gratitude but also fear. "You can still walk away," she whispered. "You don't have to. Stay with us." Evan shook his head. "I didn't choose you because they forced me. I chose you because you were alone. And because you were brave even when the world wasn't kind to you." Her lips trembled. "And Sari," he said, looking at the little girl. "She deserves someone who will protect her all her life. I want to be that person." Sari gasped softly, her eyes lighting up. "You mean, you will stay with us?" she whispered. Evan nodded. "If you want me." Sari threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly. Lyra placed her hand on Evan's arm, tears streaming down her face. "You are not choosing the ugly woman," she whispered. "You are choosing a family." Evan smiled. "I chose right." The villagers cheered around them as dawn's first light touched the sky. A new beginning rose with the sun, one built on truth, courage, and unexpected love. Evan took Lyra's hand. Sari held his other hand, and together, the three of them stepped into a future where no one would ever be alone again.